Once again, get me crying. Tsumasho, episode 8. My gosh, what an incredible episode. And really hitting heavily on the idea of the conflict that Take is going through. Literally, I am stealing this lady's daughter from her, and I'm so sorry. Just her in that bedroom crying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You can get that conflict. I've been saying it over and over and over again. What I love so much about this series is really Take. Her story and Maika is probably the coolest little conflict that this story is presenting. It's not so much about the idea of Keisuke and his wife coming back. That's great and all. Mai and having her mother come back. That's great and all. The cool aspect here that really fascinates me is what is going through Take's head when she realizes I'm taking over this girl's body. And yes, in this episode presenting what I honestly never really thought about before. What if it's not so much a reincarnation, but a possession? The idea that Take herself has unfinished business, that typically is what keeps spirits around, is unfinished business, and she was just sitting there and she took over this girl's body. And now she has that conflict where she's going, I took this child from her mother. I took her. And the moment that she apologizes to the mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hurting. And her crying in the room is like, oh my gosh, this is hurting. I never really thought about that. That thought process never crossed my mind. So when Keisuke actually goes and talks to that monk, that makes perfect sense. I don't think what you're dealing with is reincarnation. Because with reincarnation, it's a blank slate. It's a restart over. Now, yes, there's a lot of storytelling, a lot of stories that deal with the idea of reincarnation where they retain memories. And so that's kind of an assumption for us as the viewer, the reader. When we're getting into this, we go, well, I mean, there's tons of stories about reincarnation where they keep their memories. I mean, there's literally a story in the manga that is coinciding the actual story that is a movie adaptation of a story of people getting their memories back. This is a common thing here. But no, in the reality set in the story, this priest is literally like, no, that's not what happens. In our teaching, that never happens. But there's another situation that is similar to what you're dealing with that makes more sense there. A spirit with unfinished business. Your wife had unfinished business and thus took over this child's life. That's where it hurts. And again, that's where it hurts, the idea that if Take knows this, she's going to feel sad. Now, so far, Take doesn't know that. Keisuke has not told her that yet, and I bet that's going to be a real shatter point for her as a character once she finds that out. But she hasn't figured that out yet. Now, this is an interesting conundrum that we're facing right now. Because honestly, the biggest impact in this episode of the anime adaptation is really that point of Take being broken right now because she feels like she's stealing this daughter from this mother. And that is something that, so far, as I've read, has not happened yet. So I'm at the point now where I'm, of course, reading the manga alongside the anime adaptation, and so the anime has something happen. I'll read the manga up to that point. I'm not getting that. So I'm like at the point now where I'm stopping reading the manga because I really do feel like it might be diverging from the manga quite a bit right now. Mainly because when Marika gets her memories back in the manga, she starts to go back to school. We get to see where she's scared at school. She goes to school and everybody's talking to her naturally. They're calling her by her first name and she doesn't know these students that way. And so she gets really scared and the mom has to come to the school to get her. And that's when she apologized to the teachers. Now, here's the key thing here. Once Take gets her memories back, or once Marika gets Take's memories back in her again, in the manga, she hasn't told the mom yet. The mom collapses because she's working really hard in order to provide for her daughter that she just got back. That's the key thing there. I just got my daughter back. She feels more naturally like my daughter, and I want to nurture her. And that's where the conflict comes in, is that she's working really, really hard. She's having Keisuke and Mai take care of Marika while she's at work. She's trying to provide for her daughter. This is my second chance. I have her back. I want to make this happen. And then she collapses. She overworks herself. She has to go to the hospital. And then Take comes back. And then in the manga, Take doesn't want to tell, at least as far as I've read, Take does not want to tell the mother that she has taken over the body again. She's afraid of doing it because she's weak right now. So this is where I'm kind of wondering if this is going to start deviating from the manga. I don't know yet. I don't know how the manga ends. So I'm probably going to stop. I'm probably going to stop reading the manga at this point because I think there's a big difference here. Not so much that it has to present the idea of the mother collapsing. We already see that she's working really hard. This mom is trying very hard. I mean, the teacher said it. She keeps talking about how hard you're working, how you're feeding her and everything like that. It's obvious that you're not a bad mom. Let's work together in order to take care of Marika. Let's nurture her. Let's take care of her. It's more so in the idea of Take has already told the mother that she's back. And that is obviously creating a massive conflict here. I think overall what this episode is presenting is an incredibly emotional aspect about essentially taking over somebody. The idea of stealing a child from their mother. Because honestly, up into this episode, Chika, the mother, is dealing with this idea that she's my daughter and I messed up back here and I greatly regret that. But at the same time, she feels different. She's not entirely my daughter. She's my daughter, but she's not my daughter. Because Take has retained those memories of Marika. She's gotten those coming back to her. So she's able to call her mother. Yes, mom. You're my mom. You're always my mom. She has those memories melding with her own spirit. But it's always been the idea that they are one being. That there's only one soul in this body. A single soul. But now what this episode presents to us is the idea that Take's spirit is pushing out this other spirit. And that's like the question mark that is presented to Keisuke in the end. In the end, who stays? Who's going to stay? And that's cemented in my head. This is going to go the route that Take has to move on. She's going to pass on. She's going to say goodbye, and she's going to leave. Because I I really felt like this was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. The moment that she went in that room and she looked at those things, I'm like, oh, she's going to get her memory back. And sure enough, she does. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting it that fast. I really wasn't expecting Take to come back that fast. I figured we would have a move on period and even have the point where Chika says, stop being with my daughter. Let my daughter move on. Let me keep my daughter because she's tasted it. A girl in front of her that feels like a daughter. Whereas before she felt a little conflicted. And it's sad that she honestly, I think that she probably had that feeling of like, I don't want to admit this, but she's not entirely my daughter. There's somebody else mixed in there, and it's a mom. When I see her, the way that she acts like an adult. I don't feel like I'm adequately being a mom to somebody that is literally a mom. It feels weird, but now I finally got that taste, and I want to keep that. I think that conversation with Keisuke and Mai, I understand Keisuke and Mai's struggle here, because again, they're literally losing their mom, the mom again. They're losing Take again. But it's like that aspect of almost feeling like, yeah, you guys kind of have to step aside. This should have never happened in the end, unfortunately. This should have never happened. And Take even mentioned that. This shouldn't be normal. This should be something that never happens. Why me? And now they're getting that chance, and now it's gone, and now Marika needs to have a life. And it can't be constantly having this pull. I think honestly the mom was very, very kind in this regard. She could have said she's back. You're gonna scare her. You're gonna make her conflicted. You're gonna mess with her. I need you to step aside. But she was being very kind about it, and she was also essentially, grabbing what Keisuke provided. Keisuke said, "We want to help." They were offering help, and so she's putting aside her pride and saying, "Look, I am trying really hard to work here. I don't want her to be alone right now. You offered your help. I want to take it. Please look after her when I'm not here. I need somebody to keep an eye on her because she's in a very difficult place." And yes, again, that makes sense because she's lost literally a year of her life. She's behind in school. She needs tutoring, and she needs somebody to kind of help her here. Again, something that was kind of interestingly kind of portrayed in the manga is the idea of Marika herself not being able to fit into groups well right now. Again, going back to school, where school used to be her place to hide away from this crazy lady. And now she doesn't know anybody. Everybody's different. They're all acting weird. It was cool because in the manga, they do get a little bit of a segment, again, showing Marika going back to school and how everybody was kind of scaring her at first. But then when she comes back to school again, everybody's kind of gossiping about how, like, yeah, apparently Marika has forgotten her memories. She's got amnesia. I wonder if she's got like an illness or something like that. It almost felt like it was going to turn into a bully situation. But very quickly, you have characters like Miyuki, who was the one that really hates her because she likes Takeru, and Takeru likes Marika. Even her speaking up, "Hey, teacher, I think it'd be good if we go back and review things from the previous year because Marika is going to struggle here." And everybody's like stepping in going, "Yeah, we should do that. Let's help out Marika." And they're all stepping in to kind of help her, tell her, like, focus on this, focus on this. Like, these kids are sweethearts. These kids are total sweethearts. But it like gives her enough courage that she can kind of fit back into the group. But yeah, everything around Marika was fantastic this episode. Just again, going in there and doing a tutoring of her mentioning the idea that, yes, everybody at school is being really nice, being very accommodating. And yes, most importantly, my mom's changed. This was something that I really wasn't expecting from the story. And again, it goes into the idea of what the mother's experienced too, is the idea of both of these two. They have this gap. They had this gap period where there was like this nastiness that was happening. So if we think about it from Marika's perspective, she went from literally my mom is neglecting me, she yells at me, she threatens me, all this kind of stuff, to now my mom's cooking for me and she's asking how I'm doing and she's attentive to me and she's working really hard. It's like night and day. Again, getting into the psyche of this character is so freaking fascinating. I love that idea of almost like a light switch happening and suddenly everything's fine. I look at what happened as almost a dream. It's like I woke up from a long dream, and I assumed that my mom was just that dream as a nightmare. Her attitude was probably a nightmare. This is my actual mom. She was never a bad person, but yet she's constantly apologizing. She keeps telling me she's apologizing. She went out and bought all these books for me and she's helping me study and she's apologizing to me over and over again. Who is she apologizing for? That nightmare? Because it doesn't exist anymore. It's, again, such a cool little bit. I just love this little stuff. Keisuke hurts a lot. And again, I really do feel for this guy and how much he's going through with now, once again, for a brief period of time, losing his wife again. And again, seeking out her grave again for the first time in a long time. And sadly, they cut all this stuff, but in the manga, it even has him kind of relive some experiences with his wife. And again, yes, unfortunately, reliving that scene where he goes to the hospital and finds his wife dead, standing in front of that grave. That's why he's just gushing out tears. And this guy comes up and says, "You haven't cried that much ever since your wife died. Did you lose somebody again?" But again, getting into the idea of the hole that's in somebody's heart, how it's not just a wound when you lose somebody, but it's a hole. It's a gap. Something's missing there. This person was your life for so long that the fact that they're no longer there leaves this hole in your heart. It was really well put together. And again, I like the conversation that presents is the idea of the possession. Because again, that does get into what is technically in the lore of ghosts and spirits and vengeful spirits, is the idea of things that are unfinished. And yes, that made sense to me. And again, it kind of went to the idea of reincarnation that I was going with in the previous episodes. Why Marika, or why Take, I'm calling her Marika now, why Take kept yawning. I was like, she's going back to sleep. This other self that's inside of her is going back to sleep. Not so much of a possession that is now able to pass on. Now, why this sort of presents a difficulty in understanding is, yes, I understand the idea of a spirit, an unfinished business. They're going to hang around. I get the idea of Marika walking by at that one moment, and for some reason, Take's spirit went inside of her and possessed her. Because, again, she's got unfinished business. She takes over. She starts to kind of fix them because she got all this unfinished business. But then why did she leave again? That is the question mark that is presented in my mind. If we're going to go based on that idea, why did Take go back to sleep? Why did her possession go away? Is it because her as a spirit grew tired and thus she had to go into sort of a hibernatic state inside of Marika's body? And in the moment that she's seen the thing again, she was able to awaken from her, in the spirit inside of her, awaken and be there again and repossess her? Which that would make me believe that, yeah, she's going to be in there and there's a possibility that she could possibly remain in there, question mark? Or maybe they could figure out a way to be able to go back and forth. But I think, again, what's going to happen in the end is we've established now that there's still unfinished business. Because she didn't pass on. The thought process that when she went to slumber, when Marika came back, she was finally able to pass on. That's what the priest said. She disappeared because her unfinished business was done. Obviously, since she's still here, the unfinished business is not done. And I was talking about that last episode. I said she's established everything. She was able to take care of them, get them to eat right again, correct their past, all this kind of stuff. They're happy again. Maya's moving on. She's getting married. But there's still one unfinished business. Keisuke. She's still concerned for Keisuke. And it's sad because her existence here is causing it to get even worse. Because Keisuke is comfortable again, but she can't stay around forever. So I think in the end, she's going to realize this is a scare. Her going to slumber is a scare. She's going to establish the Keisuke, hey, I can't stay here now. It's been established. This scare, I cannot stay here anymore. You have to move on. So yes, either decide that you have to move on and you're going to give me up, or get remarried. And that might actually turn into getting into, again, what I've talked about before. They've skipped pretty much everything around it, which is Moriya. Moriya, the coworker, is a constant presence in the manga. Maybe it's Keisuke getting with Moriya. Something has to happen. He either has to accept that she's leaving, finally move on, be single forever for the rest of his life, or get remarried. And I think that might actually turn into what it's going to be. But either way, I think this is a scare enough to say, you need to do something. But anyways, fantastic episode. Again, a lot of it has to do with the mother. I think Marika's mother, that stuff hurt. Her going to the teachers and saying, I apologize, it's all my fault. I literally put my daughter through so much stuff. Them saying, no, look, remember what you've done well. Let's do well going forward kind of feeling going on there. Again, just really the idea of her finally getting a taste of having her daughter truly and reconnecting with her daughter, and then essentially losing her daughter again. Despite the fact that Take is, for up to this point, presented as being a melding between the two of them, we're finally establishing these are two different things. And yeah, I can imagine the conflict this lady must be having now that Take is back and she got a taste for what she's essentially lost this entire time. I accepted that was the norm back here, but now I'm realizing it's not the norm. Do I want this lady in my daughter's body? And almost, it doesn't show that she immediately goes, get out of my daughter's body, give me her back. I think she's conflicted too. I think she fully understands this is something that's happening and she can't really fix it. What do? I can't tell her get out, because there's almost a sense here again that she spent some time with the two of them together. There being a Take Marika blending that could be her daughter too. She could see Take / Marika blended together as her daughter too. Could she say, get out of my daughter's body? I want my daughter back. Ugh. Her standing outside the door, that's all I can think of is she thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on? What do I do? This isn't normal. It's such a good conundrum. And again, this is exactly why I think this is so intriguing to a sense, is to really question that kind of stuff. This is why it's cool to get an idea of a wife possessing a child's body, what kind of conundrums that creates. But anyways, I've blabbed on enough. Hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on episode 8. Looking forward to where it goes from here. But if you did like this video, hit that like button down below, comment. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.